So Ali, Omar, you guys both grew up on the West Coast, and the car scene
Oh
from
yeah.
where I'm from the Midwest. So car scene for us was honestly just a bunch of JDMs and pickup trucks. Like it was diesels, Hemis, and VTECs is what it was
Come from
for us.
Yeehaw Town or what?
That's where I grew up, man.
Oh man.
And so coming out to the West Coast, the car scene here is absolutely insane. And you guys saw like people like Doug DeMuro and a lot of these car guys, these car channels are all based off the West Coast. Like,
Yeah.
how was it for you guys growing up? I mean, what was the car scene like in the 2000s and up until now? I mean, what?
Go ahead, Omar. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I grew up in Pismo Beach, California, right
Nice.
along the coast right there.
Yeah, beautiful
So
sand.
yeah, you got a good mixture of people. You got a lot of old retirees driving in their older Chevys, Fords, and such, and then we got our younger.
That's where he gets his car sense.
We got our younger
Old
Kyle
retirees,
scene as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
We got plenty of Kyles out there with Monster energy drinks, with their lifted F-150s, Tacomas, ripping it out on Pismo dunes, and then you got your lowrider scenes on the more predominantly Hispanic parts of town. We got good amount of Impalas.
Is there a big culture of that, like the
yeah.
lowriders and the?
Oh yeah, I think growing up, he's definitely right. There's a different groups, right? Then you have your dub scene and your guys who do that VIP style with the Lexuses and the Volkswagens that are on airbags down to the ground.
Yeah.
And then you have your JDM type of guys, and there's, I think in that section there's two type of guys. There's that one segment that's more into the look and to that static or that stance, and they're kind of rubbing off the ground. It's more about the look of the cars.
Yeah.
And they do put in like engine modifications and things like that. But then there's the other group who's more into the track oriented and race oriented. Then you have your exotic groups.
Yeah.
So you come down to the Orange
Yo.
County, Hilly County by the oceans, and then you have your exotic car groups, your rally guys.
Yeah.
So there was a big culture of cars, and cars brought people together, and the thing is, like, for me, I've appreciated all the different types. When I was a kid,
Yeah.
growing up, driving down, the thing that I'd be most excited about was the dealerships on the way to school every morning.
Oh, yeah.
Oh wow,
Yo,
and it'd be the same cars every day, but
Yeah. Look, the car scene here is insane. It's unlike any other part of the country. I mean, I've been to Miami. I've been to New York and the East Coast. Like, they each have their own car scenes.
Yeah.
But I think the diversity that we got here in SoCal is unreal. Like, you can go to one car meet. You can go to South OC Cars and Coffee and see a Koenigsegg. You could see an egg.
Exactly.
And then you could see that freaking first-gen RX-7 with an LS swap.
yeah.
Like, you just see the most insane
Exactly.
variety here,
It kinda
which
feels
you
like,
can't get anywhere.
You
yeah.
know, like for Forza Horizon.
Yeah.
When you're just
Forza.
driving through there, you have some trophy truck just ripping it through there, and then you have a Lambo just racing against there.
Exactly.
It
You
feels
can't
like
get
SoCal
that
right
any
there.
other part of the country. And that's why, like, I was asking you about Pismo.
Yeah.
I've never been up to Pismo. I don't know if there is much of a car culture there, because you got SoCal I feel like it's in its own world. Like,
Yeah.
LA down. San Diego doesn't have a whole lot of a car culture, but I think, like, LA, OC,
Whoa.
Inland
I think
Empire.
I think
Hey,
San
I
Diego.
lived in San Diego.
I think it
mean,
trickles in. I think there's maybe less events going on.
Yeah.
I'm sure it trickles in, and there is. And the thing is, with the internet today, with YouTube and the popularity, I feel like there's people everywhere now, and the community's kind of come closer.
Yeah.
Of course, we're at the mecca of cars and the whole car culture in the world, and I think even it's in the Middle East nowadays, in Dubai and things like that, Abu Dhabi, they have a big car culture and car scene.
Yeah,
Where do you think
but
half their cars get sent from?
But there's but what I'm saying is,
Yeah, but it's not like SoCal.
it's not like SoCal.
No.
We're in the epicenter.
Exactly. I think in like Dubai and Abu Dhabi, you got like some insane tuner culture. I have an uncle who used to do some insane swaps on like Land Cruisers. Used to do some tuning for them. They would crank out 600, 700, 800 horsepower,
Well,
like
Sammy,
insane
get
builds.
This, though. Look at half their videos. Look at half their shocks. What are they running? They're running Kings. They're running Icons.
Yeah.
Where are all those made? You got King over here in Southern California. You got Icon out in Riverside. I mean,
Yeah,
the
they're
industry's
from
all here, man.
Exactly.
What do you guys think about how the market is with all these different cars and some of these older cars going up in value? I mean, a lot of the cars they call them modern classics, whereas back in the day, you'd have your 40-year-old car, your 30-year-old car, that would become a classic. But nowadays we have those 90s cars, those early 2000 models that are going up in value.
It's our generation, right?
Exactly.
Like, unemployment, aside from COVID, I think that put a little. We thought it was going to like plummet car prices. That didn't happen. The opposite happened. The supercar market skyrocketed, and the semi-vintage. I call it like semi-vintage 90s. Like my little 93, my 190 that I just sold. That's like semi-vintage. It's not really.
You sold your 190?
I just sold it.
Why'd you sell that?
I made money. I made more than I thought.
No way.
Yeah.
Tell us a story about that.
I can't share that story. That's for another podcast.
Okay.
No. I just to stick to it. Like the two factors that I saw is like people like us. We're out of college now. Those were the cars that we idolized, right? Like the 90s JDMs, even like the late 80s, early 90s exotic cars. Like our generation got out of college. We were able to find good jobs. The economy's been doing relatively well, at least for the past like 7-8 years, right? Since the 2012 is really when it started bouncing back.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people in our generation who are able to afford that Mark IV Supra, who are able to afford that, that Ferrari 458, that's in that $150,000, $200,000 ballpark. Yeah. And I'm starting to see like a lot of young guys at a lot of car rallies and meets that are able to afford these cars. And I think that's what's driving up the price.
I mean, that's exciting, man. I mean, well, right now, I mean, at this point in time, I mean, that 25-year limit or 25-year limit for importing cars, now it's coming in where you can start purchasing those cars you saw in Initial D, all those iconic cars that you saw back in the day when you were a kid playing with their Hot Wheels,
What's that game? Do you remember the PlayStation game? Was it Tokyo? It's not Tokyo Drift. It was
Midnight Club.
Need for Speed.
No, it was like Tokyo Extreme Racing is what it was called.
Really?
And it had the dopest JDMs. Like,
name a few.
Huh?
Name a few of the JDMs. Yeah.
I mean, it had the Silicas and the Supras and the RX-7s and the cars that weren't like targeted on the modern games. It wasn't on Need for Speed. It wasn't on that car. That game was so realistic. But that's what started like a lot of my like affinity for the vintage JDM cars.
So since you're talking about your vintage JDM or your affinity of cars, what were the cars that you liked as a child? I mean, I'm sure there's tons of them, but if you could put it on, one of your hands, five cars.
One of my hands. You want five?
Just want five.
My five.
Favorite five.
Omar. Honestly, I think for a lot of people it's the same, but I differ on a couple. So the Mark IV Supra, I was in love with that car. I was an RX-7 guy growing up, though.
Really?
The third gen RX-7.
Really?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was super beautiful.
Did you like it?
It had a feminine touch, but it was a race car. Like, it was a driver-focused car. It was rotary. It was different. And there wasn't a lot of them, especially in the Midwest. Like, there was not. I mean, you saw one, it was like seeing a unicorn. Versus, like, the Mark IV Supra. I went to high school with a guy who had one. I knew a couple people that had the Mark IV.
Yeah.
But I loved the Mark IV Supra, the R33 or the R33 Skyline, the third gen RX-7, the Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4.
That's a beautiful
I think
car.
like red with the black leather interior.
Yeah.
5-speed manual. I don't think they made them in 6-speed then. Like by the time they phased out, but they were 5-speed manual. They were. My uncle had one. Just absolutely in love with that car.
Yeah.
It's hard to find a mint now.
The 300 GT. They actually made a few other models of that specific variant. No.
The 3000 GT, I think they had a facelifted version, but it was pretty much the same car.
Yeah.
And then it was out of production, like in the late 90s. That's it.
You think Mitsubishi might revive that one day?
It's hard to say, especially with Mitsubishi, because now their evolution and their Eclipse are SUVs. So maybe it'll come back as an SUV or a crossover, maybe a minivan. Who knows?
Toyota bought the Supra back. I mean.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The problem with Mitsubishi. First of all, it was a very reliable car, the 3000 GT. And that's one thing I love about the 90s cars is that they're super reliable. What does everybody love about the Mark IV? I mean, just some minor upgrades to that block, and you could run 1,000 horsepower through it. You could tune it, slap on some bigger turbos, change out a few components, and you can crank out 1,000. I mean, that's pretty much the standard now. You got a Mark IV. It's like if it doesn't have 1,000, you're like, what are you really doing? Like, you're not bragging at any car show with a 600 horsepower Mark IV. Like, the standard is 1,000 now, which is insane.
Yeah.
I can't do that to my 911. I got a 991.2. I can't crank that to 1,000 horsepower. That block can't.
For maybe one run.
Maybe one run.
But in all reality,
and it'll cost me $20,000 to replace. Like, you can't do
true.
that. The 2JZs are relatively inexpensive. They're harder to find.
Well, now they've gone up majorly. So now it's
Supply.
not even. So because of this whole thing where everyone's looking for these motors, for these transmissions, for the cars themselves, everything, the price has gone so high. Nowadays, it's like, is it really worth it to get it? And now, what's the next thing? And
I think
so
it'll be the VQ actually.
we were actually talking the other day because even cars like the Honda S2000s are going up, but they're still
reasonable.
They're still reasonable.
You could pick up
Yeah.
a clean one for 10 grand, right? Like you could still get a decent one.
Not in SoCal, but
What
maybe,
are you
maybe if you go
seeing?
further out.
What are they going for now?
Maybe about 16 to 20.
Yeah.
Really?
16
Got
to
that
20.
COVID tax, man.
That COVID tax is
That's
6 to
COVID
10
tax.
grand. All right.
Now,
Yeah.
the other car right now, I believe, would be a C5 or C6 Corvette. It's at the bottom. I don't think it's gonna go down further. You may find a few examples here and there, but they'll be very abused models.
Yeah.
So
I'm
they're about
sorry.
10 to 12 to 15 for the C6s for like
the
a
C5
decent
was
example.
cheap materials.
But the thing is with that car,
not GM's best work, but
Yeah.
But the thing is with that car, you have a 350 horsepower motor that's naturally aspirated, rear wheel drive. The car is very light. It's
sounds
balanced
incredible.
very well.
LS power,
Sounds
baby.
Incredible. It sounds incredible. The C5.
yeah.
Are we still talking about the same thing?
C5 and
Oh, yeah.
C6 are
Yeah,
almost the same
dude,
thing.
they're incredible. Like I said, my only knock against GM in that era was that they went cheap in their parts bin. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
they
but
invested no money on the
you're
interior.
talking
They
about
cared.
interior, but I mean the
But
guys
it's a
are buying-
Cavalier interior. It's a Chevy Cavalier
Right,
when I
but-
sit inside it.
The point, I mean, the thing with that car is that it's not like your GTR, your R33 and R34 GTRs were exquisite in Porsche quality or Lamborghini quality, or
Right.
I mean, and all their head dashboards and displays, and
Yeah.
the same thing with like a 240 SX that's about the same price as as that C5 C6 Corvette.
Jeez.
So what you can get for a Corvette with the 350 horsepower without having to swap a motor in it,
Parts are
without
so
having
much cheaper.
parts
Yeah,
are so
yeah.
much
I mean,
Yeah, that's
cheaper.
the value proposition, really. I mean, that's where it's
Exactly.
at.
Well, if you think about it now, actually, the Corvette, now that it's around $10,000, the interior is finally fitting the price.
The interior does
It's
fit the
finally
price of 10
fitting
grand.
that $10,000 price.
Says the guy who had
it's
who
worth
had a
it.
C7 Corvette.
I
Yeah.
mean, to be fair, that
You had a C7?
I had a C7, but man,
Nice.
every part of that car rattled when you hit a speed bump.
Really?
Yeah.
Just
But-
poor build quality, or like what was the issue with
Oh,
it? Like, did
man.
you buy it used or what?
Bought it used, but I mean that sucker was maintained. You know, it was garage kept, and still the leather was tearing. You'd hear a rattle every single time you'd hit a rough road. I mean, it was
So Omar,
questionable.
so the other car that I was going to tell you guys about that I believe is at the rock bottom right now is a 350Z and
Oh,
the
yeah.
G35, and believe it or not, your boy Omar just about 2 weeks ago picked up a 350Z, and
Nice.
myself here just picked up a G35.
Who did? What?
Myself, I just picked up a
Yeah,
G35.
You picked up the
Just picked one up.
Yeah, I
G35.
just
Look
picked
at
up
you
a
guys
G,
making
you know.
moves under the radar.
Exactly. So
what are you guys going to do with them? Like, what are you going to do with the 350Z? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, if it's just a normal road car, it's a 350Z, nothing special, right?
So
what are we?
just
what are we
got
doing
a-
to it?
We'll
yeah,
tell you
so
about
we have
the-
a PosiTrack installed on there, so
Nice.
limited slip in the rear.
Yeah.
We got a full racing set coilover set up on there
he
as
has
well.
a full BC long stroke
Yeah.
coilover system with a fully
Nice.
adjustable rear end, and the suspension setup is a true rear in his
Yeah.
car. The other thing is that he does have an angle kit on it.
Mm.
So basically, if you think about it, for $3,000 to $5,000, you could find these examples. It's what other rear wheel drive car that you can find that are about 250 horsepower to 280 horsepower,
Yeah.
and that not only do they have that sort of power,
Yeah.
but they're also rear-wheel drive. They're manual transmission. They're relatively light,
Yeah.
and they're relatively balanced. I mean, there's no other car. And if you look at all these people chasing these, these older BMWs, these older 240SXs, some of these other JDM cars, for what you're paying, you're not getting what a 350Z gives you. So I think, and people haven't realized that yet. And there's so many
The
examples
vintage
of them.
BMWs are nostalgia.
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
There isn't the same, like,
Sure.
yeah, the
Yes,
350Z doesn't have that same allure that a vintage BMW does, right?
No,
like,
for sure.
You're not
Yeah.
getting
Sure.
thumbs up on a highway in a 350 unless it's an enthusiast or like they know what you've done to the car. Like it's a real car enthusiast.
And we're
Vintage
not-
BMWs.
Well, we're not
it's-
talking about E30s. I'm talking about probably like E36s and some of these other cars.
E36s are starting to have like a cult following now.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
they're on
think
the
about
rebound.
it this way, though. I mean, with the 350Z, the Altima, the Murano, you got almost every single Nissan product having that VQ engine in there.
Mm,
Just think about it. I mean, you can swap an engine for less than maybe $1,500.
got it. I thought you were trying to say that's what made it special, like in terms of like next level car, and I'm like, I don't know
Well,
how I want to say.
my
No,
point
that
is-
car is that engine is tuned completely different. Like the top of the block is different, isn't it, or is it all the same thing?
So
They are
so
slightly
there's
modified.
probably slightly, and then they have something called a rev up motor on there. So they have
Okay.
one that has an extra 1,000 RPM.
Nice.
And if you look at that model versus your E36, now for an E36 M3, for a nice example, you're paying what, 13 grand?
E36 M3.
E36
Yeah, at
M3,
least like
maybe
they're starting to
15
be like
grand.
15 to 20 grand
So
now.
for a
They're
car you
going
give her
up.
3 to 5 grand that you can have fun with, that they make very good track cars.
Yeah.
They make very good drift cars. So
That's
so
when I think of 350Z, I think of DK. I think of
yeah,
Tokyo
yeah, there
Drift,
you go.
right?
Tokyo Drift.
Like I think of some
That
serious
was-
drift action.
That was my favorite movie of all the Fast and Furious movies. Of course, I would say the first 3 were the best, but
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
my favorite personally.
I love it. I thought it was such a cool
And
story.
when I saw that,
Oh, yeah.
when I saw that 350Z going up to the rooftop,
Oh,
on
and that parking
Yeah.
structure.
and that
yeah.
parking structure, I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh! Every time I saw a 350, that was so. You know, you're talking about some of the cars that when you grew up.
yeah.
For me, one of the big cars was a 350Z. I mean, I was in love with that car.
Oh, yeah.
I was in love with the E46 M3
He's,
at the time.
Yo, he's
I
got
did-
a love affair with your car.
Hey,
I
I
did.
mean,
He's
I mean,
telling.
I also
yeah,
like the
yeah.
G35. The
Got the
G35 is the
G35
same
is the
thing.
same engine. You
Okay.
know?
So is that your purpose though? Is it going to be a track car, a drift car?
That thing's just going to be a drift car specifically. You know, we're really
Just
going
a
to
drift
focus
car.
on getting the hydro set up on there and really just taking it out to Apple Valley.
What does that run you? You pay 3 to 5 grand for a 350Z, right?
Yeah.
You don't really care about like the seats and like the interior. You care about like the mechanics being good, like or the bones
Yeah,
being good.
yeah. So
I mean,
Then
it-
what are
it
you
rides well.
dumping on it? I mean, like
So-
what does it cost to get a car from just a normal road 350Z to a drift car or a track car?
So if you're setting
What are you
up,
really spending on?
if you're setting up a drift car, so
Yeah.
a basic drift car, you only need a couple of things. You just basically need a manual transmission, rear wheel drive car.
Okay.
Once you have that, you want to weld the differential or put a 2-way limited slip. And welding an open differential is pretty cheap. A lot of shops do it from like about $80. So it's very reachable and attainable. The second thing is you want to make sure e-brake locks up your rear wheels, and then you have
You want to make sure
coilovers.
the e-brake locks up the rear
Locks
wheels.
up the
Got
rear,
it.
Yeah.
rear wheels, and then all you need is the e-brake. Now
Yeah.
that's your stage 1 intro to drifting.
Yeah.
The next step is maybe getting some angle on there, on the front. So
To
you
the
have
layman, what do you mean by angle? The
so
camper?
angle. So angle would be steering angle. So
Okay.
instead of having, let's just say you've got 50 or 30 degrees, now you have
Radius.
50 degrees
Average is
Ah.
around 30. yeah.
to turn the car.
What does that take? There's a kit that allows you to.
Yeah, there's an angle
to-
kit, and there's like different types of kits. The other way to do it actually is to cut the knuckle where it goes into the hub,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
and what you do is you shorten it so it centers where. So let's just say it's turning your wheel from the back. When you cut the knuckle,
Mhm.
it kind of brings it inwards, so it's closer. So now when it's
Yeah,
turning,
so
it
you're
turns a
able to-
lot more.
Yeah.
Got it. That makes
Um,
sense.
So you cut the knuckle, re-weld it, and that's the other way to do it. So it's relatively cheap. There's a few tracks around here. There's Adams Motorsports Park, but the better one is called Apple Valley Speedway. It's AVS to Apple Valley, so it's a
Yeah.
bit of a drive. But I mean, most tracks are out in the desert.
Willow Springs.
But
is-
but when you
yeah.
go for a regular track
Willow
day,
Springs is
your
pretty
car needs to have you need to have proper seat belts. You need to have a proper helmet. They
Roll
check
bar?
your battery.
Well, if you have a convertible,
You have roll cage?
Well,
Roll
right now
cage.
I'm talking about
Roll
when you
cage.
go want to go for a regular track day.
regular
Yeah.
track.
Then the track day, you have 2 or 3 sessions, and you're paying $150 or upwards of that. Now, also, if you're trying to put down lap times have a lot to do with what kind of tires that you have, how good brakes,
He's
how
a
good
tire
of the
man.
brakes that you
He's a
have.
tire expert. This
What
guy.
kind-
Yeah.
You
what
can tell
kind
he
of
spent
what
too
kind
many
of
on
and then what kind of car that you have, right?
Right.
And so all those things, a lot of that has to do with how much money you're willing to spend on it. And with drifting, it doesn't really require that because you could put used tires for
Drifting.
$30 a pop.
Yeah.
And the entrance fee for the track is about $50. You need a basic helmet, and you're pretty much good to go.
Okay. You remember we were talking about my 190E and possibly making that either a track car or a drift car, like swapping the motor, changing the suspension up,
Right. Wow.
really going all out. Ultimately, I wanted to choose a completely different platform.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's so much about that car that I loved, but equal amount of things that I hated about it. Hated the seating position. I hated the clearance. I hated there was a lot of little things that I hated.
That'd be pretty unique, though.
Huh?
How many 190 drift cars have you seen?
We
190E drift cars, and you know what?
we
I
don't really
found a project car in
Really?
San Diego that was already had the Evo kit on it, and it was already
Really?
in that. I know BMW is a diamond Schwartz metallic. I don't know if Mercedes uses the same paint code, but you know that like charcoal looking black.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. My BMW, my E30 was a diamond Schwartz metallic, and it kind of looks that
Really?
color.
Oh,
So
wow.
they had that. They had the Evo kit on it, but it needs like a full restoration. But they wanted $6,000 for it. Now the
Wow.
motor, it wasn't running, but the motor had compression, and they took pictures of all that. It was like $6,000 for it, and I thought about it. I'm like, you know what, like. Maybe it's worth it, but I know I'm going to dump a ton of money, and it's fine. I was willing to spend up to like $15,000 to have like an Evo clone.
Yeah.
It was a black interior manual.
Really?
It looked incredible. But like I said, ultimately, I think if I buy a project car like that, it will be so that I can drift and track it, and I'd want a better platform.
And that's the fun part about it.
Yeah.
Like when you
Yeah.
jump in and you're drifting, and that's for me. I would say the whole car culture is there's many like there's. So when we're talking about the different types of groups of people,
Yeah.
people get into the car scene for different reasons. Some people like the way it looks. Some people like the groups of friends that they
I
make.
like the way the 911 looks, for sure.
I
It's
mean,
one of the
911 is
sexiest
nice,
cars in
but-
my
I mean,
opinion.
but all of them. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
the
of
lowrider
course.
guys love the way they're lowriders look in
Absolutely.
their classic cars.
And I
They're painted-
disagree wholeheartedly. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'm not into like lowrider culture, but yeah, I agree with you. My
And-
question was, I'm sorry, I'll let you
And then
finish.
some people like that freeway speed and
Yeah.
things like that, and those they like the sound of the exhaust. And then other people are more into developing some sort of skill, whether it's autocross and track or whether it's drifting. And
Yeah.
for myself, I would say personally, it's to develop better skills in driving.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy.
He's
that
like a
part of it.
canyon run drift guy. I love it, man. He's the ACH, hitting the corners,
I mean, hitting them real hard,
hitting him real hard. No, I love that. I love that. He always like tries to drag me to the racetrack or to the like a drift track, and I know the couple times that he tried to invite me, it didn't work out. But I really want to. Like, I think it's really important. I think some of my fear will be lifted when I get a lot of experience on the track. Like, I
Or
think I'll
off-road,
just develop,
maybe. Or even off road.
Well,
You can put yourself.
I don't have the platform for that. I'm not taking my 911 off road.
No, Omar is
I
a
mean-
big
I'm not trying
off-road
to-
guy. For me, I don't enjoy. It's hard for me to go for hours at 2 miles an hour.
2 miles.
Have
He's
Have
not
you
the
seen
rock
those drift
crawler.
spec?
I was at
911s though?
Well, that was my question. Is like, let's say somebody wants to get into it. All right, somebody like me wants to get in to the drift scene or just to a track a car. But let's stick to drift because you have your 350Z.
Yeah.
What's the budget that I need? Like, what do I need to look at? Because forget buying. I used to do that when I was young. I'll tell my E30 story later. It took me 4 years to get that car running, and I got to drive it a full 2 weeks before it got totaled. So I'm not trying to buy project cars that are going to take forever. Right, I gotta like buy a car, know exactly what I need to spend on it, have the budget there, and get it done. Start tracking it. So, what does it take? Like, what's the budget I should set up? What am I looking at realistically to upgrade suspension? I know every car is going to be different.
Yeah.
But what's like a safe budget to set and say like, hey, you need to buy a car like $3,000 to $5,000. Like, you can find a couple of good platforms with suspension upgrades, with all the upgrades that you need to it. You're into it X amount of dollars, and you can have yourself a really solid drift car.
What would you say, Omar? Go ahead.
So okay, so like let's just say maybe $2,000 to $3,000, right? You've just barely got your stimulus check. You really want to just
Hey,
take
that's where
that
mine's
sucker out
gone.
to the track. I mean,
Yeah.
an E36, E46, 328i with a manual.
Like the bare bones.
I mean, you can find those on OfferUp, Facebook Marketplace.
Your
for
brother
like
had one, right? He
$1,500
drifted an E36.
Yeah, my brother
Yeah.
drifts an E36 325i, and the great thing about that is they're so cheap. They make decent power,
Yeah.
and not only that, that chassis is so well balanced that it does
Yeah.
great, and they're really smooth when they slide.
Oh, yeah.
And all you need is to cut the knuckles and weld it, and you have angle. So
Yeah,
where
yeah.
other cars you have to put a full angle kit, but that one is one of the ones that you could just
Yeah,
cut the knuckles.
The
I'm a
chassis
BMW
is so
guy. and
well built
I know we
also.
all have a mutual friend who's a BMW Master Tech.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we need to ask him about the reliability of these. Like the E36 platform to me is a little foreign. Like, I love them, but I know they've had some issues. And I don't know which motors are the reliable one.
Yeah,
Again,
so-
what's a good base to
So
start with?
the motors are generally really good.
Yeah.
But what they all do have in common is cooling issues.
Yeah.
So once you get, you change your
With the
water
plastic, like
pumps,
the
you change,
expansion
a lot of
tanks and
your
yeah.
That's a
plastic
common
hoses
BMW
and
problem,
tanks.
though, no?
Yeah.
You change your radiator, you go to a bigger radiator.
Are we looking at him to get a yes, a head
I
nod?
mean, it happens all the
Oh,
time.
I'm sorry.
So,
Yeah, the radiator.
So once you change
issues and,
those few things, other than that, I mean, they do have their issues with their a lot of times the bushings and their the control arms and things like that. Their rear trailing arms, those things need to be changed out. You could also put spherical bushings in there.
Yeah. Just normal wear and tear.
And then
age of
the
vehicle.
drive shaft, they have something called a guibo,
Oh yeah.
which is like a rubber
I heard
connector.
about that. Yeah.
And so you want
The-
to make sure that is good. So there's what I would say is when you're buying a car at that cheap of a price, below $3,000,
Yeah.
one thing is to do is look at the buyer's guide.
Are we in the best era for cars right now?
Yeah, so
And
a lot of people kind of go ahead and say that '90s era is the best. Some people,
I agree.
Some of the
I'm
old
one of them.
timers go back and say like the '50s and '60s, but for the most part, people say it's the '90s were the best decade of cars.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you think, Sammy?
50s and 60s was the best for American ingenuity. I
Oh,
mean, we were
without
cranking
a
out some
doubt.
amazing V8s and cars. I mean, the golden era of Corvettes, Chevy, and GM and Cadillac,
Oh, that's
was
for
in the
sure.
50s and the 60s. That's some of the most beautiful cars we've ever made. I agree. But when we talk about the golden era of cars, I mean, we're talking about like JDM culture. We're talking about the 90s. We're talking about reliability, where automakers weren't worried about. They weren't thinking about planned obsolescence, right? We had reliable motors, reliable cars, and they prided themselves on that. Now, even the most reliable automakers like Toyota is like their business model revolves around planned obsolescence. Their parts department has become
Are you
a
guys
central
kidding me? Really?
cash cow.
dude,
Absolutely.
I don't
My
know.
brother
I don't know.
worked for Toyota.
I think we're on the cusp of the best era.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
if
would
you,
definitely-
I think the early 2000s. So if you look at the early 2000s, I mean, we had a lot of the cars. It was a big plunder. A lot of the manufacturers, the quality,
Oh, the
all that stuff.
90s
kinda-
American cars, I think, were terrible.
Yeah, 90s and 2000s.
Have you seen a
but
Dodge Neon?
but I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Come on now.
If you
Yo,
look
can
at
you
it
even see
now,
'em on the
okay,
road
think about your
anymore?
Dodge.
Yeah.
They just made
Yeah.
they made the Hellcat. A 707 horsepower sedan.
I'm
And
telling
you
you,
can even
man.
get a family version. And now they're stuffing that motor into every little car that they
The
have.
T-Rex.
They-
Yo.
they-
Think
into a
about
Jeep,
2020
into
though,
a
as a
pickup
whole.
truck.
Yeah.
I mean-
Now, I mean, the technology, the modern technology, and the accident collision avoidance systems, the autonomous driving with Tesla, the electric cars with that instant
I
throttle.
don't disagree with you there.
But
but
if you think about even the American sports cars and muscle cars, look at the Camaro, the
Well,
way they're handling and they're
The
they're
Camaro's
doing on
actually
the track.
going out of production pretty soon, though, so that's something to consider.
Can I-
But
But I'm saying,
can I drop something a little controversial?
yeah, let's
I think there's a revival in the automotive markets now. Like there's a revival and there's a hot demand for great
COVID
cars,
was
lots of power.
literally the perfect
Absolutely.
recipe for pulling people into
Not
the-
only that,
the enthusiasts.
automakers decided to delay some cars to make them even better. Like they started
mean-
listening to the competition and they're like,
Yeah.
perfect time to delay. Stupid example, but Mercedes did it with the EQC, for example. We're
Oh,
talking about
yeah.
electric cars. They said, oh, we got all these automakers that are coming out with even longer range than ours. Like if we're going to wow people, like we can wait on the EQC during COVID and we can make an even better performing car with longer battery life. And they're perfecting it. So by the time the EQC drops in the United
it
States,
is
we
out
have
in
an
Europe.
incredible
It is
product.
out
But
in Netherlands. My
it is.
uncle has one.
Oh, he
So
does.
we were actually talking about it this morning. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, I can't wait to see that
Yo.
car in the United States. And he was telling me to maybe look at a GLC. But
Yeah.
getting back on track
No.
with our subject.
So
I mean,
what I was saying though, to finish my point, is that yes, I see a revival, but the golden era, in my opinion, was JDM in the '90s cars, and even the Germans. The Germans were coming out with beautiful cars in the '90s. I mean,
The
I don't know what the
E36.
designation is, but the 95 S class is like my ultimate car, man. The S600, the V12s, like
that's a sweet
bulletproof. They're just incredible cars.
Car. I mean, the 8 Series BMW.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was
The
ahead of its
Alpina
time.
was coming out with some incredible BMWs. The B10 is one of my favorite. Like you don't see
even
those
Porsche,
cars anymore.
I think that the 911. I had a poster of that 911
Yeah.
as a child. A Smurf blue 911.
the 993 or
I don't know the designation.
Yeah.
But it was a 90s 911. I
talking
think
about the 993.
They're the
then.
ones that
Yeah.
they use for RWB. So it's a RWB
Incredible.
911.
Got one right there.
Like we have right here. And
signed Akira Nikai
no
replica
way.
garage for
Wow.
RWB.
He
That
signed
is a
that.
special
That
piece.
is cool.
That little tiny box was a couple $100, and that little tiny car was I think $70. That's a limited edition.
If you
like
threw that
one
into
of,
GameStop stock
Yeah.
maybe like 3 days ago, a
It's
couple
inc-
hundred could have turned into a couple million.
hey, I got some money in stocks, man. Not enough though. I'm trying to be on your level, but.
There we go.
But yeah, so I think the 90s era produced more beautiful cars that were more reliable. Yeah, I agree with you. The technology wasn't there, but just as a whole, they were
But
producing
are
beautiful
they
cars.
really more reliable? Because now every car goes over 200,000 miles. I mean, the
Time
90s
out.
cars were very reliable, less technology, so there's
Cool.
less issues and less things that break down.
Yeah.
But now when we're thinking about electric cars and reliability, what is there really? They're just a motor and a battery.
Well,
Yeah.
hold on.
So I mean, if you give me a chance here,
No, I'm cutting you off. That's the point.
if you give me a chance here, not only we made the Corvette mid-engined,
Beautiful car.
The Mustangs with carbon wheels. So the technology, even in the vehicles themselves, if you think about what's happening with some of these sports cars of today's era are faster than some of the supercars.
But do they have
I don't-
the same
I don't
spirit,
disagree
though?
with you
Do
there.
they have that
But-
that charm, that charisma?
And I do
I disagree.
And I
there.
do.
Yeah, I don't think they do.
Yeah.
No, but why not?
What's
I
the
mean-
Challenger spec? They're crazy. Like the Hellcats are what, 700 horsepower?
About 700 horsepower.
Okay.
Now they
Is that a good looking car though? Does it compare to the vintage, the 60s Challenger? Like, does it compare to that first gen Challenger? I
But if
think
you-
the first gen is way more beautiful.
If you compare it to your 90s Challenger, it's
Did we have a 90s Challenger?
or
I
a
mean, we didn't have
Charger?
Oh, really?
No,
no. If you compare it to a 90s GM car, absolutely.
Yeah.
GM was creating garbage in the 90s, and
You
they
guys
know
remember
that, and they
like
admit to it.
Lamborghini, right?
But-
Like the Countach, the Diablo. When you
dude.
when you heard about those cars, even the Viper, man. I mean,
The
that-
first gen Viper,
No,
that
but
car.
gorgeous car.
hold on. I know you guys are talking about 90s cars and how
Yeah.
they're great. But a lot of that has to do with the modifications you guys are able to do on 90s
No,
cars.
not even.
Now,
I mean,
now, talking about those modifications, a lot of those modifications and things like that came in later on. They weren't there at that time. I mean, the 1,000 horsepower 2JZs weren't there right in the beginning. They
Well,
came in after a couple
consider
years.
this,
And
though.
if you
I
think
mean-
about some of those, like the movies, like the Fast and Furious movies that really
Yeah.
exploded.
I agree. Tuner
Now-
culture
and-
didn't hit till
and
like
now-
the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And now we have all these
Because of
cars
Fast
with
and
wide
Furious.
body kits, your
Absolutely.
BRZs, your
Yeah.
Rocket Bunny kits. You have, the Porsches. All this stuff is happening today. The aftermarket is amazing. The parts that you could put on these cars, whether they're 90s cars or current cars, the drifting community, the tracking community, these things have gotten so much better.
Yeah, I would
just a
argue
short
that the
time.
beautification of modern cars is inspired by 90s designs.
But at the same time, if you think about it, maybe cars need more modifications now to have the same character that they had back in the day. I mean, when you drove a
I agree with
Countach,
that.
I mean, you will actually, that car controlled you. Now
You
now
were.
you drive a modern Lamborghini. I mean, you have so many
Yo.
nannies to hold you back. I mean,
We got my buddy Edwin. He's a big time car enthusiast. Had a couple of cool builds. We're gonna bring him on the show here in a few weeks.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we would always talk about, like the allure of the '90s sports car.
Yeah.
That his quotes was it was trying to kill you. He's
Well,
like the
exactly,
car was
yeah.
literally trying to kill you. There was no driver assist, driver's aids. Like there wasn't the same type of traction control technology that we have
ABS
today.
what?
Like yeah, there's no ABS exactly.
Yeah.
So
No,
it was
and
it was
I
a
agree.
raw.
And it's a
it-
very raw experience,
Yeah,
which was very
yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm the guy who likes the most raw, I think, out of the three. But
do you really?
but
Ollie likes a raw or what?
but the thing is,
Yeah.
with I think this new era with all the technology, the electric cars, we have pickup trucks that you could buy that you could
Yeah.
jump at 100 miles in the desert.
Yeah,
I mean
true.
the Jeep Rubicons have automatic sway bar disconnects. So just that technology, along with the performance, is set to another bar. But you know what? I think. Hey, you know what? It's the best time. Toyota just brought back their Supra.
Yeah.
I mean,
Everybody's
do
bringing
things
back
in a
cars. The
more
Bronco.
tame
Ford just came back
Ford's
out with the
coming
Bronco.
out with the Bronco again. So there's a lot
The
of cool
Defender,
cars.
Land Rover brought out the
new
an-
Defender
yeah,
and-
an homage to the vintage one
I mean,
with a
consider
modern.
this,
And,
though.
and I think,
I agree.
in my opinion, I think the cars all the cars are very beautiful. Like when we're talking about the 2000s, I think the majority of the cars didn't look that great.
2000s
I mean,
weren't.
yeah,
I mean,
that's
the golden
true.
era.
I mean, when I was
Mercy.
when I was in high school and
Oh,
stuff like that,
that was another level.
I mean, there wasn't too many cars that had the look to match the performance.
Here's what I will say. I'm of this opinion, and I've done this consistently for the last 10 years, so I'm backing up what I'm saying. I think it's really important to have a modern, like if you're a real car enthusiast, you'd have a modern car,
Yeah.
and you got to have like a semi-vintage 90s, maybe late 80s car.
Yeah.
It gives you the best of both worlds. You can have something that's beautiful and old, but honestly, like if I were to be honest, I know you're asking me about like the golden era of cars. I still feel safer. I'm much more comfortable in a modern car. But I still feel that my vintage car is so much more beautiful. It's so much more, it's raw. They're more like driver focused with not a lot of aid. It's just a cool driving experience.
it's just
But
the
I
whole
also
element
can't
of
live
speed,
without
you
the
know?
cool modern car. Like I want my 991.2 or the 992 Porsche. Like I can't wait to upgrade to the 992.
Yeah.
But I also want that. Like, I sold my 190E a week ago, and I'm already itching for the next late
project
80s,
car. There
early
you
90s
go.
vintage
So-
car.
so
Yeah,
talking
like,
about-
I can't,
so
can't
talk-
not have one.
So talk about that. So let's talk about your current garage. I mean, what do you have in the garage right
I
now?
got
And-
nothing right now.
But you
I
have,
got a W221, a
Okay.
2009 S550 4MATIC. That's my
Okay.
daily beater. I got it with low miles, like
Got a
65,000 miles on it.
Solid
It's got
land yacht.
77
Okay.
on it now. Yeah, but it's my daily.
Uh-huh.
And I got a 991.2 C2S cab.
Okay. So
That's-
what is that? What is that? Like, what are we talking about? It's a rear engine 911 Porsche.
Yeah, it's really like a
and it's
yeah.
and it's
It's
making
kind of like a mid-engine.
And how much
right?
and how much power does it make?
It's got 420 horsepower.
Okay.
About
Very cool.
something,
And
370
that's
pound
you have the
torque.
rear wheel drive variant.
Rear wheel drive.
Okay.
Yeah. I got the C2S.
And then what are you looking to add into your garage? I mean,
dude, that's an amazing question.
What's been on your
honestly,
mind? Yeah.
honestly, I got like a list of cars. That's my problem. Is like you can't give me that many options because.
but I'm saying like with your goals coming up or what you want to do. We were
Next,
talking about drifting
yeah.
and things like that. So what car?
well, the next
type of
move,
car?
honestly, for me is a GT3.
Okay.
Right, my ultimate. I know you guys. We'll get into this later, but you guys have some Turo experience. Love to keep my C2S. I love a convertible. This is California. I couldn't have that in Ohio growing up in Cincinnati. Like you
Yeah.
can only use your convertible 3 months out of the year. So I really love that I have this car. It's such a fun experience. I drop the top. If it's cold, I could just roll the windows up in any weather. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I'd really like to like Turo it or just park it and get a GT3.
Yeah.
I think if I have the GT3, that's like my ultimate car. I don't need a supercar if I got a GT3. Like that's
The
it.
I mean,
GT
that
car,
is a supercar.
yeah.
essentially.
No, I mean, people argue about the 911 being exotic or a supercar, but yeah, GT3 is getting close there. I think the RS variant is more
Yeah.
considered like supercar.
So Omar, tell us about
But-
your current garage.
Yeah. I mean, like based on that, I mean, I can't compete with the 991 just yet, but
no, but you got some cool cars, man. Don't
yeah.
be
I mean,
modest.
well, we got a Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon. We got
Yeah.
a JLU R.
Nice.
2019 model. Just got it lifted up with some 37-inch tires, and then on top of that, we have a C8 Corvette, basically built on the 3000 order. Set to be made probably within the next 2 months or so.
Sweet.
I
You have allocations for two C8s, right?
Yeah. I have a red one and a black one coming
Oh,
in
God, this
for the
guy.
rental fleet.
You're gonna sell me one of those allocations?
I'll let you drive one for a day.
He's like, I'll let you
that's
drive
about
one.
it.
This guy. You won't even
Um,
give up one of his two allocations. This guy. All
I
right.
mean, that-
He's
that's
also,
why-
he's also got this guy's going all American. He's got the
Oh,
holy.
yeah.
He's got all
The
three
Jeep,
brands.
Chevrolet.
Tell him
and what
about
else?
what else you got from Ford
So,
Motor
you know,
Company.
I was kind of feeling a little O.J. Simpson mood, so thought I'd bring back the Bronco tradition. So we've got myself a 2021 or 2020 Bronco with the Sasquatch package.
Oh, nice. You went with a great package.
Yeah,
You got the
35 tires.
two or the 4-door, the 2-door. Or
Oh, I got the
four-door?
4-door. I mean, in general,
Nice.
with Broncos going to this independent front suspension, it's not
Yeah.
really based as a rock crawler, right? I mean, that independent front works really well when you're going fast at higher speeds, especially
Yeah.
with the Sasquatch package with the Bilstein performance tuned shocks.
And it was
but-
They have the
designed to
Haas
run that
suspension,
Baja.
right?
yeah,
The
exactly.
Haas suspension is incredible because
Oh,
it changes, it detects, it can sense what type of terrain you're on and adjusts the suspension accordingly.
Raptor-esque suspension.
Yeah, which is pretty dope, man.
yeah.
And tell us about the color. You have that.
Oh yeah,
what do
we
you
got
got?
the sunburnt orange, that
Ooh.
typical, poster.
That prototype
best
car. That
spec.
prototype color. Yeah.
exactly.
the sexiest spec.
I honestly believe that if you buy a car, in that poster-like color, it's going to retain its value a little bit more just because whenever you see that car, whenever someone's going to buy that car, they're going to look at that poster and be like, wow, that
It's-
was the car I wanted when
Exactly.
I was little,
And then he has his high school dream car, that 350Z.
Oh, yeah.
That was your high
But,
school
hey,
dream
but-
car? Yeah.
This is an interesting topic and question that I have. When you think about car colors today, why are all car colors black, white, silver, gray? I mean, you have these. It's all a black and white. It's a monochrome spectrum. I mean, what happened to those days in the 60s and 50s
It's
where
based
they had
on the
that?
false narrative of resale value. That's what it is.
You think?
I think we were talking about like this perception that people think like white sells for more. And
Well,
I think that's
it makes
true
sense
like
if you're
for
in the
modern.
desert.
Huh?
If you're in the desert or you're in the UAE, it totally makes sense why you'd get a white car just because of the color and the temperature. But
listen, I'm a minority, and I'll tell you right now, the most annoying car in the world that's driven by every minority, Armenian, Iranian, Lebanese, is a white BMW. a white 3 Series specifically for a certain age group and demographic. I hate that car with a passion. I wish BMW would stop making the color white, and I'd love to see some other variants. Like,
and why not those? I mean, why not those wild colors?
BMW has such a
Why
good
not
blue.
those special
Or,
colors? I mean, there's the
Estoril
car.
blue. I mean, you got all kinds of different.
I had a blue. I don't know if it was royal blue. I had a blue X5, and my only other favorite variant of the X5 was a red. I don't know what the color is.
Really?
My buddy Edwin's like a color nerd. He could tell you the exact color of every.
Wow.
Yeah. If you tell him like, hey, what's that red? He'll be like, that's Rosso, Corsa, whatever red. He's incredible with that. So
Wow.
we're gonna mess with him in a couple weeks when he comes on. We're gonna give him
That's
a quiz.
pretty
Just
exciting.
throw like 10 different colors at him. See if he can name them. But yeah. So exactly.
Mix
and I
in some
think
Home
now,
Depot paint
Yo,
swatches.
Exactly. I think you guys can agree with me. Nobody's buying vintage BMWs in that stock like white color. Nobody cares. Like
Yeah.
the cool ones are those like limited colors that nobody got.
Oh yeah.
The purples, the blues, the really cool ones. Those are where the value's at.
And then if you think about it, when you're looking at your family's old cars and the old pictures and the clothes that they're wearing, the ones that are bright are the ones that are
coolest, man.
exciting. That's
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what you
yeah.
want to see. I mean, the guy's wearing a gray shirt, and black pants. There's nothing exciting
No.
about that. But the guy wearing the red puffer jacket with his jeans on, his yellow backpack, and his pink Cadillac,
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
fins on it. That's what you want to see,
Exactly.
I mean,
And
like-
Cadillac with the fin.
a couple months ago, we had the torch red C7 Corvette, and
Yeah.
the moment you would drive anywhere with a kid under 8 years old, if they didn't
yeah.
point, they were probably colorblind.
Yo, I agree.
In all honesty,
Listen,
I mean,
you know how plain my 911 was, right? Like
Yeah.
it was the gunmetal gray rims, which is pretty factory, given the brake dust issue on most 911s. As soon as I got the wheels gold, it was like all of a sudden it went from like being this like hidden vehicle, this invisible car, to like all of a sudden everybody looks at it.
You're the guy with the golden rims.
The gold
parked
wheels, yeah.
outside?
Hey, like
Oh.
even with video
No
editors, I
way.
go on a lot of rallies. Like when I tell them, like, "Hey, do you got any footage of my car?" They're like, "What is it?" Like just gold rim 911. Like, yeah, got it.
You gotta get
And they
some
can
real
pull it real
grills
quick.
to match those
Yeah,
wheels, though. You
gold
know?
grills. Hey, but I'm dropping a little nugget here. I think I'm getting it wrapped Miami blue in like 2 weeks.
Ooh,
Yeah,
okay,
okay.
so it'll be like
About.
one of the rare. I saw a 992 in
Miami blue,
Miami
huh?
blue with the black top with the gold. It kind of looked really.
You got to wear the Hawaiian
slick.
shirt after that. I got to
Hawaiian
start calling
shirt.
you Vinny now. I mean,
No. It's
on now.
hey. There's a lot of GT3s in the Miami blue. I mean, I think that's
There
what
we go.
originally they were
The
spec
Miami
for.
blue is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
color when you're getting a Porsche, and
Yep.
that's what I love about it. The other thing that I wanted to
No, hold on. You dodged the question. What the heck is in your garage, dude?
What is in
you,
my
You had a
garage?
car,
what
and now
is
that
it
car's
in this
gone.
guy's garage now?
Yeah,
That's
what do you got going on? Because
I had
honestly, I talked to Omar about his cars when we went on a car event this past weekend. Don't know where the heck you were, but you've been making moves without telling anybody,
Oh, yeah.
and so I'm
So
Yeah.
let's start in the 21st century.
the 21st century.
We have our I do have a Tesla Model 3. I love that car. So many people hate that car, but
Ultimate
and
DD,
I was one of the haters of that car too. I don't like the fact that everything's going electric and there's no manual transmissions. And I
Yeah.
felt it's
It's a simple car.
it's-
It gets the job done. It's
but
beautiful.
it's super
Simple.
comfortable.
Less
it's
is
got all
more.
it's got all the technology. It drives itself. I mean, what can I say? The only thing is that range anxiety, and that still is there. And the fact is that you do have to pre-plan where you're going.
Yeah.
Then I do have I have an Evo 10, which was on fire that I bought salvaged, so I have to build that car, bring that
You
thing
did
back
buy
to
it.
life.
That's going to be a
Nice.
separate episode in itself.
Yo,
no?
that's-
Yeah,
That'd be a really cool build.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We have a military green JL Rubicon, just like Omar. So
Nice.
we're Rubicon buddies.
Not lifted
I think
yet.
I think I got
Let's
the
see.
better color, and I got the tow package on there. Shots fired.
Shots fired.
But
we'll see who can model off road better though.
anyways,
Yeah.
But
anyway, so the other car that I do have is my Subaru BRZ drift car. So that car I've had for 2 years. It's actually been in the shop for over a year.
Since I've known you, I haven't seen
Yeah,
it
you
or
haven't
heard
seen
about it.
it.
You just said you're working on it.
You were working on it. That's
Yeah.
a very
Well, you-
special car. I'm working on all the details. We're gonna dial that thing in. I'm very proud of how that car is at, like the state that it's at.
Pepto Brismo.
Tell me
We
what
call
it looks like.
We
Can
call
you
it the
just
Pepto BRZ. So it is
Pepto
it is
BRZ.
it is
Pepto
Pepto
So appropriate.
BRZ. It looks like you basically were slingshotting through a it was a black car that was slingshotted through a bottle of Pepto Bismol. So
Can
whatever
we put
that
a picture,
looks.
Can we put a picture of that up?
Yeah, we'll put a
All right,
picture
we'll
of
put a
that
picture
up.
of it
It
up
has
for people to see.
it has a Rocket Bunny version 2 kit on it, so it's
Nice.
a wide body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look, it's a bolt-on kit, right?
It is a bolt-on kit.
Yeah.
You do have to cut the fenders
You
and
do.
trim and do all that kind of stuff.
And you were fine with that because that car was you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, and then what we do have is we have full coilovers, a fully adjustable rear, an angle kit that's going on there.
Drift car.
It's a complete drift car. It's a
That's gonna
party
be
car.
one of the sickest little drift cars.
I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to pull a
Pepto
Billy Mays
BRZ.
here and say, but wait, there's more.
Yeah.
I mean, going into the interior, I have a flocked dash. So if you guys don't know what a flocked dash is,
No.
look that up. It's like a suede dash. And the thing is, with that dash, when you have a suede dash, you're not having any glare on your front windshield, right?
I love that.
Yeah.
So it looks really, really cool.
I mean, you have the BRZ, but what else do you have, man?
So, and then I have a Honda S2000.
Yeah, don't hold back on us. You got
Yeah.
a 2000.
I have a Honda
S2000, huh?
S2000. That car, I
S2K.
bought it. I mean, it's one of the cars that I loved in high school.
Wait, AP1 or AP2?
I have an AP2, the last
Okay,
generation.
okay.
It's
Yeah.
a black with a full red interior.
Those are going on.
Those are
skyrocketing
that's
in
like the
value,
most
though.
rare model.
Yeah, exactly.
nowadays,
The
like
AP2
AP2s
wasn't
in general.
out.
So
long.
that was an AP2 with a full red interior, including red carpet, red everything.
Cinnamon
Favorite
red.
spec.
Or?
What's
it's,
the exterior color?
it's black. So
Black.
Oh,
It's
I
my
think
favorite
out of
spec.
the black and with a
My
full
favorite
red,
spec SG.
there's only about 1,100 of them made.
and
and
probably like way less than half still on the road.
So yeah, way less than half is on the road. It is over 100,000 miles, but I've gone through
It's a
every
S2K.
single thing. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, everything is stock upgraded.
What motor does that have in it? It's the V6.
No, it's
No, I think
it's
it's a
actually
four-cylinder.
it's
Oh, it's
a
a
four
four-cylinder.
cylinder, and it was the most powerful engine per liter before the Ferrari 458.
really?
So
What a flex.
Even the Alfa
what
Romeo.
what a flex.
Yeah.
and it revs out to about 8,300 RPM.
Oh, yeah.
The first generation revved out a little bit higher.
VTEC
But
kicking in, huh?
The second generation has a little bit better. The body looks a little cleaner. The lights
Yeah.
don't have those big orange reflectors on your headlights and things
Yep.
like that. So I kind of
Yeah.
like the facelift version of it.
No, it's
Okay.
a clean
And it was
version. I like it.
it was a later version of it, and I've done replaced so many things in that car, replaced all the bushings and everything that I've touched has been upgraded.
Nice.
And it's not like it's still a stock, but it's stock upgraded, so it drives very nicely. It's a very well balanced car.
What do you use that for?
It's just like a
Daily?
cruiser.
Just a fun-
no,
just a fun
no.
cruiser?
I drive that car once a week or once every 2 weeks. It's just like a cruiser type of
You
vehicle.
do it on a few rental apps, no?
I did a couple times, and now what we do is probably take it to the canyons and just enjoy it. It's a really fun
Just a fun car to drive. Yeah, I
And
wouldn't.
it's going up in value. So
You haven't really messed with it. Like you haven't really changed anything.
No.
You kept it mainly stock.
it's
Yeah.
completely stock,
Yeah.
pretty much. I do have some coilovers, but I do have my stock ones. So I just got a new set of coilovers on
You
there.
have the S2K, and then you got a couple more cars, no?
Yeah,
Omar knows, man. He's got the
Oh,
nuggets.
yeah.
I don't even know. I don't even know what he has.
I'm
You
waiting
talk to
till
me
the
about it.
juicy part.
I
What do
do
you
have
got?
an
What
FJ
else?
Cruiser
Oh, the FJ.
with the Fox suspension. It's lifted.
Sweet.
It's got 33s on it, KMC. So that I would say is the most comfortable car I've ever
Yeah.
sat in. The front seats are couches.
Keep in mind, this guy hasn't driven a GX yet, so
That's true.
He
That's
hasn't
true.
truly
yeah.
enjoyed it.
Omar's a big
No,
proponent of the
yeah.
GX. I do like the boxiness. It's like
Yeah.
driving a brick.
Dude, I
Yeah.
love it.
MPG's garbage, but
I wanted an FJ for the longest time.
Really?
It's
Visibility
You feel like you're in a
sucks.
tank.
Yeah.
But the
You got-
glass is so short and so square.
you have 3
Blind
windshield
spots.
wipers. I mean,
You have 3
And your blind
windshield
spots
wipers.
though
You got
are
some
really
major-
bad on the
yeah.
sides. Yeah,
every
the blind-
cool car I've ever known has had 3 windshield wipers.
Wait, name another car. I don't even know what else has 3 windshield wipers.
I think there's another Mercedes-Benz vehicle that actually have.
But
3
every
windshield-
every
Oh, the Unimog actually has
Really?
3 windshield wipers.
Wow.
Yeah.
if you got 3 windshield wipers, you're automatically
You're
cool.
dope.
You're
or the
automatic.
single, the mono wiper on my 190E.
Oh, the mono.
I did a
Oh,
mono
yeah.
wiper
Kinda
conversion
cool.
on my E32.
Mercedes did do
and
that.
was-
The
those are
E320
cool.
had that as well. The
Yeah.
older models, yeah.
Yeah.
What else do I have, Omar?
What else?
Uh,
The man forgot what he has in his collection, man. I
I
admire
do have,
that.
I do have a Mark V Supra.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I do have a Mark V Supra.
At one point, you had 2 Mark V Supras, though. Don't be humble. I mean, yeah, it's okay to flex here.
Well, let's not talk about what happened to the first
I'm
one.
just saying you had 2 at one point, right?
You had to have a take
But,
two
but
on
the
that.
spec that I have on this one is a Phantom, so that's the most rare color.
That's the like
it's like a
it's
it's
a
like a
satin
satin
finish, right?
it's a
Yeah.
satin
Yeah.
gray
Oh,
like a
so
it looks like a
dope.
metal.
Oh, I mean,
almost.
love it.
You also have another Jeep Rubicon. I mean, you have another Jeep Sport. You have a Tacoma as well, no?
Oh yes, I do have a
He's-
current gen
this
guy.
2019
They're
Tacoma.
somewhere on a driveway.
You know what?
Forgot.
And that's a TRD off road with the 4x4, the tech package and the long bed. So that's a very utility heavy vehicle.
This guy loves the seats in the Tacoma
But,
in specific. That's his favorite seat altogether.
I took that car on a road trip to Arizona.
Are they that comfortable?
No,
They're so
it-
comfortable.
I
you
would
need
say,
a chiropractor.
I would
right
say,
after.
I would say that is the most uncomfortable seat that I've sat in for a road trip. I mean, it's just, I don't like the. I know. There's the taco guys. They're beautiful trucks. They're very reliable. They make tons of aftermarket parts for
The
them.
depreciation
But
is incredible.
and
Unheard
it
of,
is
yeah.
the car. Yeah,
the
it
curve is
basically has the
incredible.
best. It's
Yeah.
the best depreciation. So it is one of the best cars to buy. But after our family's owned like a Tundra.
Mhm.
So since owning that vehicle, it's just not
Yeah, it's
as
hard to compete.
because the Tundra interior is so comfortable. It's so
Yeah.
big and
SUV.
plush.
Honestly,
It's a
No, no,
couch.
did you
Yeah.
have the dual cab? Like, what was it? The full?
Yeah,
full
I've
size?
got the full.
It's
the
an
full-
SUV inside. It's so
yeah,
comfortable.
It's
and
like
luxurious.
S-class seats in the
Esque.
back. I mean,
Esque.
I mean
I'll
size,
take that,
space.
yeah.
Not
I get offended
not
when
the same,
Yeah.
but
Somebody says S class, but
not the same. But
Yeah.
I mean, I do
Yeah.
love driving. I would say I'd love like dailying like a SUV because you could see over. Although I don't daily an SUV.
Yeah.
So I think those are my enthusiast vehicles, and then I did just buy that G35.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
So that I bought Megan Racing's, and their suspension engineer fully worked on that car and set it all up for drifting. So it's a purpose-built
Nice.
drift car.
Yeah.
It's got no front side.
All your door cards are out. You
side
name it.
windows. The car's completely stripped. It's actually, believe it or not, they had it weighed, so it weighs about 2,800 to 2,900 pounds.
that's light.
Yeah.
That's super light. That's
Incredible.
Supposedly 800 pounds off.
That-
700,
yeah.
800 pounds.
That's like 600-700 pounds.
That's as light as a 240.
911. Yeah,
that's as light as a 240.
Yeah.
It's got the rev up motor, so it makes about 280 horsepower.
Yeah,
It has a
280,
hydro. It has a hydro e-brake
Nice.
system, so the hydraulic one that you
Yeah,
see
yeah.
Ken Block
Yeah, yeah.
pulling in the
Yeah,
gym
dude.
cons.
Yeah.
In the
Super
gym
cool.
cons, it's got angle kit. It's got their all their arms for the front and rear, their control arms, and all their rear adjustable arms,
Yep.
as well as a coilover kit.
Yeah.
A racing steering wheel, racing seats, and a little roll bar. What I really forgot about was my '68 Bronco and my '70 Bronco.
that's right. You
Oh,
had
yeah.
mentioned that in passing. What's the
So-
progress on that? What are you doing to it?
So
What's-
right now,
Why would you push
I actually have
Priest aside,
I have
though?
2 Broncos, the real ones, not the the new ones or
That's
the
a
one that
swipe
are
at
on
Omar getting the new
order.
one.
It's
Hey, man,
okay.
the new one's nice.
Well, we'll see.
You
who
know,
does
my
better
my
on
garage
Friday,
actually
you know?
has cars. They're not all on pre-order.
I got a few in the garage.
so
okay? I got
Yo.
350
yeah,
Zoom
he's
going
got
on.
Just
he's got the 350
Just
Zoom in
wait
the garage.
at Omar's flex once he finally gets the allocation delivered.
Yeah.
Well, once
When he
his
takes
Bronco's finally
delivery.
built and running, I mean, then we can actually have a
So-
conversation.
So,
but
we're doing a full frame off restoration on both of the vehicles. So
frame
I-
off just means it's not working, basically.
So basically,
Still in the shop.
So I had basically
most
had
Fords are.
I bought a '68 Ford, and then we pulled the body off the frame. We had
Nice. Yep.
that frame sandblasted,
Completely
then
redone, huh?
dipped in some sort of enzyme chemical that doesn't allow it to rust.
Sweet.
Every bolt and bushing was changed on it. We put a motor, a Ford crate motor from
Nice.
a '90s Mustang in there, like a 5.0 motor.
Nice.
Oh wow,
Coyote.
those are
Not a Coyote, but it's a 5.0 out of a 90
Fox body?
96 Cobra Mustang.
oh
No.
nice.
Oh,
Okay, yeah, the
really?
next gen.
Yeah, the next
yeah,
gen.
Yeah.
How much is that pushing?
And
like 300,
it's
400?
it's around 300 horsepower. I mean,
Okay.
it's got some heads and cams and things like that. Nothing too crazy because I wanted to keep them reliable. And the car with the short wheelbase, if you
Yeah.
put too much power, it'll pop a wheelie on there.